Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, our weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time to spend with us. I'm Eoin Devereux, a reporter with the Banner Press. I am joined this week by Paterson, a reporter with the Banner Press as well. Kira, great to have you over there and sharing some information with us.
Always good to be missing about a half hour of work. I'm okay with that.
Oh, and this week we got a lot of work to talk about that went into the pages. I mean, this one turned out like a pretty good edition. Front page story is a story that, as we speak, is still actually in development. Historic piece of property and a building in the community of Arden is coming down. I'm not sure if you can see it right now. That's why you're going to have to pick up a hard copy of the Banner Press to get a closer look at it. The Arden grain elevator is coming down. We do have a picture of it and a little bit of information on the front page. We will have more pictures and a little more detail in a future edition. We're optimistic we will. If you have any information or anything you'd like to share about it as well, you can contact us directly at news@neepawabanner.com or at our phone number. We will be giving that information, as usual, at the end of the show. But I got to admit, I was a little unfamiliar and am still unfamiliar with the grain elevator. But Kira, you and your family are from out and about there.
Yeah, we live about halfway between Arden and Neepawa, and on my drive home every day, I can see, if I look to the east, I can see the Arden elevator off in the distance, but that won't be a view for very long. And we did have family that is in Arden, and I grew up in and around Arden, had friends there and that kind of a thing. So the Arden elevator is very familiar to me, and I have to say I'm a little sad to see it go. The day that we found out that it was getting torn down was the day before it was starting to get torn down. And so I decided I need to take a drive out there and take some pictures of it before it's all gone. So I went and I got up close and personal, and I have to say it's in a little rougher shape than I remember, or it was in a little rougher shape than I remember, but it was definitely a landmark. I mean, the further away you get, the prettier it looks, but
yeah, I'm very much the same.
Yeah, exactly. It happens with age, right? But yeah, like it's definitely a piece of the cityscape of the village of Arden that's going to be missed. And we would have liked to have gotten a story for this week, but it was kind of a last minute thing. They told us like on Tuesday, oh yeah, it's getting torn down. So I tried to call the colony that owned it. I tried to call the Neepawa area planning district, is that what it's called, to see who is demolishing it, and if it's been sold or if it's not been sold and it's the same people that own it that are demolishing it, because we've heard rumors, but we don't really have the full story on that. So I was trying to get through to people, but I got so many busy signals. Like it was just, and I'm sure all the people in Arden were probably calling the same people saying, what's going on? Why is the elevator gone? So I'm guessing that's why there was busy signals, but I just couldn't get through to anybody. So we didn't get the story in for this week's paper, but I'm hopeful. Yeah. I'm hopeful that we will be able to get it in for next week.
Exactly, and that is the story behind the story sometimes, that we don't get the story. There are times we just run out of time on our chases, and we gotta sort of think about it for a future edition. And we do hope that we will have this for a future edition. In the very least, we will have some very interesting pictures. Val Wilson, who you're familiar with, she does so much great work for NACTV. She was pretty much staking out the elevator there, and we're hoping to get a few stills from her work for next week's edition. Diane Warner as well was able to get a bunch of pictures, one of which you can see on the front page of this week's edition. We're going to go through, we're going to get as many of those interesting pictures as we can, and hopefully a little bit of detail to go with it in a future edition. All right, so let's shift gears. A conversation we seem to have every week, unfortunately. That is the new reality of our society. COVID-19 seems to be something we always have to talk about, whether we want to or not. There is an updated article on page 2 outlining some of the things that have been happening in Neepawa and surrounding areas. You may have heard this already. There's a local business, local franchise that really got tagged for not following COVID rules. It's a international franchise. I'm not going to name it. You know who it is. You know what it is.
I mean, if you read the story, you'll know too.
And if you don't, you're going to have to read the story to find out. But they got tagged by an inspector for not following the COVID-19 rules. They were one of the first businesses in all of Manitoba to get hit like this. Another one was Good Life Fitness in Brandon. I don't mind throwing them under the bus, they're not from around here, and plus they charge way too much for day passes. It's ridiculous. I'm not bitter, but they were one of the businesses that were tagged, as well as the Neepawa one. We got some of the numbers in terms of active COVID cases for the region. Prairie Mountain, our region, is still doing relatively well compared to all the other ones. Winnipeg is out of control. Southern Health, which encapsulates Steinbach, Winkler, Portage, pretty much all around Winnipeg, is in really bad shape as well. But you can find those details on page 2.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to note, though, one of the first businesses to get tagged, by that he means one of the first in this last kind of set of rules, not in Code Red, but I believe it was during Code Orange when this happened, when the whole province went into Code Orange. And then obviously there were still people going into these businesses so they could be fined for not socially distancing. But yeah, that was in kind of the second most recent set of new rules.
Yeah.
These were among the first people to get fined with that set of rules.
Yeah. Some businesses are just, and with new enforcement officers out now, there's going to be they're going to be very strict on this. Mm-hmm. But it's fortunate to see, and we're going to segue over, some businesses, local businesses, are really doing what they can to make things as easy as possible for people. And a couple of them are local pharmacies. Mm-hmm. And Carrie, you got that story, don't you?
Yeah. I was working on getting that story when it was Code Orange, but it still works now that it's Code Red because pharmacies are essential and they are still open. They have a few more restrictions now than they were in Code Orange, but they are definitely keeping to the restrictions, obviously because they are in the healthcare sector. They know the importance of keeping to these restrictions. So they are limiting the amount of people that are coming in. They are requiring masks. They are encouraging people to phone in ahead of time so that their prescriptions can be ready when they come in and they can just pick them up and go. They are also pushing the delivery option, especially for those who are more vulnerable and shouldn't necessarily be going out as much as normal. So I talked to both Nelson Jackson and Heather Toderick, the owners of Neepawa Pharmacy and Harris Pharmacy, respectively. And they said, yeah, there have been more people calling in. There have been more deliveries, in fact. So it's really good to see that people are kind of taking advantage of the delivery and also listening to the suggestions that they kind of plan their trip ahead of time and get in, get out without kind of just milling around and potentially getting more contacts and that kind of a thing. So there's a few details in this week's paper about that. That's on page 11. I think we need to keep moving fairly quickly because we got a lot to talk about. But yeah, that's a little bit of a snippet about that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, page 11, you can check that out. It is important for you. We all get caught up from time to time looking at the provincial numbers, looking at the national numbers, looking at the big picture. But I do hope that you take a little bit of your time to look at the smaller things, the moments that are occurring within your community. These are the types of stories that aren't being told on the national news. So hopefully you will take a moment or two and educate yourself on how this global issue is affecting people on the local level. All right, so let's shift over. Ken Waddell, as usual, has his column. And as usual, it seems as of late, he's talking about COVID-19, or as he likes to bring it down to, C-19. But he touches on a few different things this week in his column. He talks about the issues with the Maples Care Home, which has been so in the news due to all the COVID issues they've had and the very unfortunate number of fatalities they've had there as well. It's a very depressing number that you see coming out of there. He also talks about the recent rally in Steinbach, the Hugs Over Masks rally that had a lot of people up in arms over it. He chimes in, he has his 2 cents in on that. And he also he finalizes his article talking about some of the big box stores in Winnipeg. We don't have to worry about that here. We don't have a Costco's, we don't have an IKEA, we don't have a Walmart in Neepawa. But there are such businesses in Winnipeg, obviously. There are such businesses in Brandon, and they are having a huge, significant impact. Some of the loopholes and advantages they've been able to take advantage of during this whole thing. It's just shameful. In my opinion, this is my opinion. I'm throwing this out here. And, it's shameful. It's embarrassing how they're able to take these loopholes when there are quote unquote non-essential businesses in our communities that are dying because they are following the rules. And meanwhile, these big conglomerates are taking advantage of opportunities that is just not fair. Somebody tweeted this out, and in jest, but I agree. You know what? Next phase, let's close down every single box store, and let's just let the local businesses stay open. And quite honestly, it made me chuckle, but then I thought about, yeah, why not? Because they would handle the numbers better. They honestly would, in terms of customers, because it's ridiculous. You look at the pictures of lineups of people outside of Costco, outside of IKEA. It's ridiculous. How is that helping anyone or anything? It's not. We're insulated from it in Neepawa to a degree, but I have friends in Winnipeg, and they're fearful. They're extremely fearful. My parents are in Brandon as well, and they are locked down. They are very upset that they can't go about and visit their family and friends, but they're doing the right thing, while others aren't. And that, pardon my language, that pisses me off to no end. I apologize for, if some of you think that's a little salty, I apologize. I get a little passionate sometimes, but Ken brings up a few valid points. I don't agree with him on everything, but there's a few things here I definitely agree with him on. Let me throw to you though, Kira. What's your take?
I agree with your frustration that there are people out there that are just, they've decided, oh, well, this place is open, so I'm going to go and buy furniture even though I don't necessarily need to. I don't really know why IKEA, for example, is open, because I don't see how that's essential.
Because of those amazing meatballs.
Yes, exactly, the meatballs. I'm pretty sure they're not even allowed to be selling those because that's a sit-in restaurant. But anyway, yeah, it is kind of frustrating to see when there's that many people, and then the fact that not only that they've decided they need to go out for non-essential things, but the fact that they decide, oh, well, it's packed, but I'm still going to go anyway. Why would you want to go to a packed store at a time like this? Like, how does it get to that point? It's a mystery to me, to be honest. But yeah, anyway, I think that's another topic altogether.
If you want to, whether you agree with Ken or whether you disagree with Ken on a regular basis, take a few minutes and read his editorial, and hopefully you'll be able to take something from it. All right, let's move over to another significant thing that has recently occurred, Remembrance Day. It was a very much toned down version of it for 2020, but ceremonies still took place. We have many different pictures from many different in Western Manitoba. It was Diane Warner who was able to go out and about and get a lot of different pictures for us. We do appreciate that. I as well went to the Remembrance Day ceremony in Gladstone. It was very significant. It was obviously distanced, socially distanced, and they didn't have a full crowd of people there. They requested people maybe sort of drive by over the course of the day to pay their respects, but it still meant something. And you can check that story out. It is on page, what page is it on?
7, I think.
Page 7? Okay, we put it on page 7. So you can see that. I had an opportunity to speak with one or two of the representatives from the Legion out in Gladstone to talk about this new approach they took this year. It still meant something. The day still meant something, and I hope that it meant something to you as well. So.
And I know every year it's impactful to see how many people just show up for these, and how many people it is so important to remember. Because I know in previous years in Neepawa, it's, I believe, at the Yellowhead usually, the ceremony, and it's packed full. In Gladstone, they have tons of people come out. You see on TV the ceremonies in like Winnipeg and Ottawa, and it's just like wall-to-wall people. And obviously this year that couldn't happen, but it is still great to see that the legions and the organizations are all supportive of remembering the veterans, and still think that it is very important to remember their sacrifice among all of the things that are going on right now. Obviously, Code Red took place the day after Remembrance Day, but a lot of people were starting to kind of abide by those rules on Remembrance Day already, but still trying to remember, and that is the most important thing.
Yeah. Something else to do with Remembrance Day, a story that came down, I just got sidetracked or got lazy. One of those two, I'm not quite sure which. I wasn't able to cover this story, but Kira, you were able to pick up the slack and immediately run with it.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of an interesting thing that was happening out at the school in Gladstone.
Yeah, at WMCI, the high school in Gladstone. I do have a couple contacts there, so I was able to get that story fairly quickly, which was good. They did a project called Boots for Warriors, and what they did was they found all of the soldiers who had passed away in World War I, World War II, and the Korean War, I believe. And there were 80 of those from the Gladstone area, and they decided to collect a pair of boots for everyone, and they ended up getting 80 boots, or 80 pairs of boots, which is awesome. And what they did was they set out these boots out on their school grounds with a cross and a name of one of the veterans or one of the soldiers who were killed in action from there, and they just had that out over almost the whole week of Remembrance Day. They dedicated it to the veterans that are still surviving in the Gladstone area. They really hoped that the veterans could come and see that because it was outdoors. It was easy to drive by or walk through. And the teacher who organized it, Cameron Watson, he's a social studies and history teacher, which it kind of goes along with his subjects, but he also has quite the passion for that kind of a thing. So he did a really good job organizing that. He noted that there were a lot of people in the community that really appreciated it, and I think it was really important to highlight that in this week's paper because it was a really neat project that they did.
Yeah, it really was. Kira, you did a great job of sort of gathering that information, so you should take a little bit of time. It's on page 7. Along with my article about the Gladstone's Remembrance Day ceremony. Read a little bit about it. It's wonderful to see the future generations understanding and respecting the sacrifices that were made so long ago. So that's what that's all about. I'm going to shift gears. We talk about remembering history, remembering the heritage of our communities. And this sort of segues nicely into a story you can find on page 2 of this week's edition, a story I worked on. A group of individuals and organizations are working together to keep Neepawa's sports and heritage history alive. The former Neepawa Banner Press building, 243 Hamilton Street, is now home to what will be known as the Neepawa Sports and Heritage Center. It's an effort to keep some of those memories alive, a lot of trophies, a lot of pictures of past individuals and their work in the sports field. It's interesting to sort of see how it's going to play out. This is a joint effort between the soon-to-be former Neepawa Natives Junior A hockey team, the Neepawa soon-to-be determined team, however you want to call them, but as well as Ken and Christine who own the building and have leased out or given out, I believe, a section of it for this. It's going to serve as like a local hall of fame where people, once COVID-19 is no longer a thing, they'll be able to come in, they'll be able to see some of the pictures, some of the trophies, some of the great history of Neepawa when it comes to athletics. And it's good that they've done what they can to keep that alive. I'm very proud to be able to see this at the start, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows and develops over the years. Anything you want to add, Kira?
I think they've got a good space for it. I think it'll be really cool to see because from what I understand, it's going to be the west side of the building with it's kind of a long, narrow portion of it.
Yep.
So it kind of makes sense, like a hall of fame. It's literally like a hall, and you can just walk through and you can see things on either side. I haven't actually seen it myself yet, but that's what I'm imagining.
Well, good news, Kira. There's pictures to
Yes,
go along with it.
there is.
This is the early development, though. It's going to get even bigger and better over time, though.
Yeah, and I mean, it was kind of disappointing what the thing that started this was just that the Yellowhead Center, where all of this stuff used to be, decided that they didn't really have enough room for all this stuff. So it was kind of sad to see it go from there, but I'm really glad that it has a place to go. That's really exciting because it's kind of cool to go back and see. And even like, for me growing up in Neepawa, I know some of the people that were on those old teams, and I'm related to some of the people that were on those old teams and that kind of a thing. So it's really cool to kind of see that history be kept alive.
Mm-hmm. And you can read that. That's on page 2 of this week's edition. All right, let's move over. Ken Waddell did an interview with an individual that perhaps many of you might not think he'd do an interview with. But no, he's talked with him many a times, and he agrees with this gentleman on a few different points. Wab Kinew, the official leader of the New Democratic Party of Manitoba, Ken Waddell did a phone interview with him to talk about some of the NDP's concerns with where our health and education is currently going in Manitoba. Wab brought up a few valid points about the structure of it, where there need to be some alterations, where there need to be some improvements made. And this is important, even though it's not an election year, even though the NDP is in a major minority sort of situation with a huge majority government for the Progressive Conservatives in Manitoba, it's still important that they put the message out there that they do serve as an alternative. Because that's the give and take of the political system. We might not agree with it, we might be bored with it sometimes, but that's what our system is about. It's not perfect, but quite honestly, it's a whole heck of a lot better than some other countries. I won't name countries, but you know, I'm sure we can all put 2 and 2 together. It's interesting, and once again, we appreciate him taking a little bit of time. You know, sometimes you get caught up in the big city papers, the big city radio stations, and you think that an area like Neepawa, like our region, is true blue 100% forever and always. But you still got to reach out. You've got to reach out across the chasm, as it were, to even those that don't agree with you. So that's pretty good system to have going there. Anything else you want to add on this, Kira? Because I'm just spouting off random words right now.
Yeah, I'm guessing you didn't actually read the article, so.
I read the bullet points.
Yeah, of course. You read the subheads and the cut line, right? That's what you read.
Let's be honest. I don't read a single word in here. I make this up as I go along. Even my own stuff, usually I just phase out.
Yeah, I mean, at a time like this, I hope that what he is thinking about more, rather than reaching out to potential voters, is trying to make the system a little bit better and trying to make improvements on what the government is doing right now. And which is what he's talking about is how in care homes and how in the education system, things that he thinks might help prevent the spread of COVID-19 or help manage the outbreaks in the care homes and that kind of a thing. So it is more about COVID-19, so I'm hoping that is in the back of his mind rather than, oh, I'm going to get more voters for making it look like I care kind of a thing,
yeah.
Right? But yeah, he makes quite a few good points in this. And I mean, obviously there's 2 sides to the argument on every political thing, but you can make your own judgments about that. We do need to keep moving on. We're starting to run out of time here.
And if push comes to shove, if you don't want to read it, just look slightly to your left. Helen's recipe is there. So, you know, you'll get something from the
get on that page
nonetheless. Let's speak about palliative care. Kira, you wrote up a story about their memory bulbs and unfortunate news that goes along with it this year.
I mean, quite often, or every year, they will do a memory bulb fundraiser at Christmas time,
Yeah.
where people can pay to light up a light in memory of a lost family member on their Christmas tree, which is outside Harris Pharmacy. And they have a number of businesses where they accept the donations. But obviously, a lot of businesses had to close this year, so they decided it's not really in the best interest to be holding a fundraiser like this. But they wanted to get the message out there that they are still working, they're still providing palliative care to people who need it, and they are still accepting donations, which are mail-in. I believe that information is in there in the last paragraph, where you can mail in your donations and you'll get a receipt and all that kind of a thing. So they're still doing their work and they still need your money, but they're just not doing this fundraiser because they didn't want to bring in more people to the businesses that are open, and they didn't obviously have as many businesses that are open that could accept donations. So it makes a lot of sense, but it is very important to remember an organization like that, like this, at a time like this.
It's a darn shame, but there still are alternative ways to be able to assist, because the need is still out there. Despite COVID-19, needs still need to be filled. So hopefully you'll be able to assist in any way, shape, or form on that. Let's close things up with a little bit of good news, a happier story. A couple weeks ago, Casper Werhan did an interview with Brad Mummery in regard to, I had to think about his last name for a second there, in regard to an art exhibit he's done and a competition he was involved in. And the competition went forward. The Northern Manitoba, let me just see here. Yeah, it was the Manitoba Rural Northern Juried Art Show. And he ended up finishing first in this region, which we commend him on, and finishing second overall for the province with his award-winning piece titled Hero. So we did an update. Casper did a great update on that. And it's wonderful to see Brad recognized like that. The artwork, he brought it in, and we all had a chance to see it, and it was just so phenomenal. So kudos to him on that. That's on page 3, the travel and entertainment section of our paper. Kira, anything you want to include?
Well, I'm just glad that we had something to follow up on with this. It was really exciting when you got the email press release, I believe, that said that he won second place. So it was really exciting that we had that story to share. And I'm glad that Casper was able to get that in this week's paper.
Yeah, no, it's definitely... It's not all COVID. There's some nice news as well, and we love being able to share that type of nice news with you each and every week. But we can only do that if you help us out from time to time. If you know of stories that are going on in Neepawa or around the area, please give us a call at 476-3401. We love to hear about these good news stories. Or contact us via news@neepawabanner.com. If you have some advertising you'd like to do, you can get in touch with us at ads@neepawabanner.com. That's what keeps the lights on, and that's what keeps the doors open. And that's what keeps Kira in plaid.
Yep.
Yep. If you haven't seen it already, I mean, you got the plaid shirt, you got the plaid shoes, and you even got the plaid mask.
Yes.
You went above and beyond this week. Now that is something special.
Yep.
You know what, Ken, Casper, myself, we're going to have to up our game now.
Obviously. You guys don't have the fashion sense I do. Come on.
Obviously not, no. But finally, we want to thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us each and every week. Kira, thanks for writing the stories. You know.
Got to do something once in a while.
That's right, that's right. Thanks to me for sitting in this chair.
Yep, thanks for you leading it, and I don't have to talk as much.
Well, you know, one of these weeks, you and Casper, we're going to just keep going with that. And again, thanks to you for tuning in and sharing with us some of these stories behind the stories.